Something is draining your system, and you have assigned it the name of comfort. Every object accumulating in your space, every subscription quietly withdrawing from your account, every transaction you committed to because a screen told you that you deserved it, these are not evidence of your success. They are evidence of a structural misunderstanding about what you were built to carry. Let me submit to you, the most expensive things most people own are not the items carrying the highest price tags. They are the purchases made from a position of identity confusion. The person who buys the car to feel significant, the wardrobe to feel capable, the gadget to feel ahead, the cost to feel prepared, that person is not investing. That person is negotiating with an internal deficit using external currency, and that negotiation never closes. The debt compounds not only in accounts, but in attention, in space, in the clarity required to execute a designed function. You don't need motivation, you need revelation. Motivation will give you a budget. Revelation will show you the architecture of why you are spending in the first place. And that gap between surface behavior and structural cause is precisely where most people exhaust themselves without resolution. The manufacturer did not build a component that requires perpetual external acquisition to function at full intent. Every billboard, every algorithm, every curated moment held up as aspirational evidence, all of it operates on a single profitable lie. That lie reads as follows: you are incomplete, and that incompleteness can be purchased away. It cannot. The original design does not contain a dependency module stating that this unit will achieve its function only upon accumulation of sufficient external material. That module was not installed at origin. It was written in afterward by governance structures that require your consumption to sustain their operation. You are not broken. You have been colonized by a narrative, and the first act of dominion is to recognize the colonization before attempting the liberation. What you are about to engage is not a spending detox. It is not a list of items to return or a category of purchases to avoid. It is a recalibration at the level of systems, a correction of the internal blueprint from which every external decision flows. Because the problem is not what you are buying. The problem is what you believe about yourself before you reach for the purchase. Most people approach overconsumption as a willpower problem. They tell themselves they lack discipline. They build spreadsheets. They delete shopping applications from their devices for 14 days. They follow accounts that photograph empty countertops and call that a philosophy. And then, within a cycle, the behavior returns. Not because they are weak, but because they applied a behavioral solution to a structural problem. A manufacturing engineer does not respond to a defective product by instructing the product to try harder. The engineer returns to the blueprint. The engineer examines the inputs, the materials under tension, the load-bearing points that were miscalculated. The defect is always downstream of a design flaw, never a character flaw in the product itself. This is the correction that most content about spending refuses to make because it is not commercially convenient. If you understood that your buying impulse is a system's response to an unresolved identity architecture, you would stop buying the solutions being sold to you. And so the cycle is maintained not by your failure, but by the architecture of the environment you are operating inside. Consider how a natural ecosystem functions. Every organism within it carries a specific function. The root does not attempt to perform the function of the canopy. The canopy does not compete with the root for soil resources. Each component operates within its assignment, drawing only what it requires to execute its specific function, and the system remains in balance. When a foreign element enters that system and begins accumulating resources beyond its functional requirement, the ecosystem responds with pressure, drought, disease, eventual collapse. Nature has no tolerance for structural overconsumption because overconsumption is always a signal of assignment confusion. You are a component in a system far larger than your personal preference. Your assignment, the specific function you carry that no other unit in the system can replicate, requires a particular configuration of energy, attention, and resource. When you are buying things that do not serve the configuration of your assignment, you are doing something more dangerous than wasting money. You are misdirecting the resources required for your function. And a component that misdirects its resources does not simply underperform. It destabilizes the system it was designed to serve. The first law that governs this entire domain is the law of functional sufficiency. Every system that operates at peak efficiency does so because every component within it carries only what it requires to perform its function. Nothing more, nothing less. This is not aesthetics. This is engineering. The excess is not luxury, it is load. And load without function degrades the system over time. There's an account of a bridge building engineer who spent years calculating the precise tensile load at each cable in a suspension structure could bear. In testing, he added weight incrementally, observing not the point of failure, but the point at which the structure began to silently compensate. What he discovered was that the bridge did not collapse at the moment of overload. It began to silently reroute stress through secondary structures that were never designed to carry it. Those secondary structures, under invisible strain, began to erode quietly, structurally, long before any visible failure appeared. This is what overconsumption does to a human system. You do not collapse the day you buy the thing you should not have bought. You begin to silently reroute your cognitive, financial, and energetic resources through secondary systems, maintenance, storage, insurance, psychological attachment that were never designed to carry that load. The erosion is invisible. The failure appears later in what looks like unrelated domains. Your clarity diminishes, your focus fractures, your assignment becomes harder to hear beneath the noise of which you own. Before any acquisition, run the functional audit. Ask not whether you want it, but whether it serves the specific function of your assignment. If it does not contribute directly to the execution of your design purpose, it is load. Carry it only if you can absorb it without rerouting stress into systems not built for it. The second law is the law of signal clarity. A component surrounded by noise cannot receive its operational signal with accuracy, and the manufacturer's instructions to a human system are not broadcast at high volume. They arrive in clarity. They arrive in the quiet margins between overstimulation. A person who has filled every margin with acquisition, subscription, notification, and novelty has, by design, made themselves unreachable to the signal that carries their next instruction. A communications engineer once needed to isolate a radio frequency signal from a heavily congested bandwidth. He did not purchase a more powerful transmitter. He reduced interference. He cleared the surrounding frequencies one by one until the original signal, which had always been broadcasting at sufficient strength, became audible. The signal was never the problem, the congestion was. Most people interpret their lack of direction as a transmission failure from the source. They go looking for more input, more content, more tools, more courses, more equipment, when the actual resolution is subtraction. What is needed is not another purchase to bring clarity. What is needed is the removal of the interference that previous purchases have created. The proof of this principle is visible in the lives of every high-functioning individual operating at the frontier of their assignment. They do not own more than those around them. They own less with greater precision. Their environment is a tuned instrument, not a warehouse. For every physical object, digital subscription, and recurring financial commitment in your system, ask, does this carry signal or does it create noise? Eliminate the noise systematically, beginning with the loudest, the items demanding maintenance and attention disproportionate to the value they return to your assignment. The third law is the law of identity precedence. No external acquisition can establish what has not first been resolved internally. This is not philosophy, this is manufacturing logic. You cannot coat a structurally deficient material with a high quality finish and call the product complete. The finish does not correct the deficiency, it conceals it temporarily until pressure reveals the underlying condition. When a person buys to become the kind of person who owns that item and to perform the version of themselves they have not yet fully inhabited, they are applying a finish over an unresolved structural question. And the finish fades within weeks or months. The item loses its transformative quality. The person returns to the same internal state they occupied before the purchase, slightly more financially compromised, and now in search of the next surface application. There is a story of a craftsman who received an order for a table required to withstand 20 years of daily use. The client requested only the finest surface treatment. The craftsman declined to begin the surface until he had first examined the structural core. He found it compromised hairline fractures in the joints, insufficient grain orientation for load bearing. He repaired the structure first and only then applied the surface. When the client asked why it took longer than expected, the craftsman said simply, "A beautiful surface on an unstable core is not craftsmanship, it is decoration." You are the craftsman and the product simultaneously. The identity work is the structural repair. The purchases are the surface treatments. Until the structure is sound, until you know the full dimensions of your assignment, your function, your design capacity, no acquisition will give you what you are seeking. For every category of purchase that recurs in your behavior, identify the identity statement it is making. What belief about yourself are you trying to confirm or conceal with this acquisition? That answer is your structural repair point. Work there first. The fourth law is the law of governance before acquisition. A system that does not first establish governance protocols cannot sustain efficient resource allocation. The acquisition decisions come after the governance framework, not before. Most people reverse this sequence entirely. They acquire resources and then attempt to govern them after the fact from a position of overwhelm. The result is chaos dressed in the language of abundance. Governance is not restriction. Governance is intentional architecture. It is the decision made before pressure about what enters the system, at what rate, under what criteria, for what function. A city that builds roads before it zones the land creates gridlock. A system that acquires before it governs creates structural collapse expressed in the language of debt, clutter, and misaligned energy. The ancient method of efficient infrastructure design operated on a principle that modern acquisition culture has abandoned. Assess the load before adding the resource. Determine the function before allocating the material. Build the governance model before opening the gates of supply. The systems that did this produced infrastructure that outlasted their builders by centuries. Those that did not are ruins. Establish 3 governance questions that any potential acquisition must pass before it enters your system. First, what specific function does this serve in the execution of my assignment? Second, what is the total cost of maintaining this item across the next 12 months in money, in space, in attention, in energy? Third, what must be removed from the system to accommodate this without creating load imbalance? If the acquisition cannot answer all three with clarity, it does not enter the system. This is not deprivation. This is dominion. The fifth law is the law of depreciation against assignment. Every material acquisition begins depreciating the moment it enters your system. This is thermodynamics applied to human resource management, and it is non-negotiable. Nothing purchased retains its original energetic value indefinitely. But the unique depreciation that most financial thinking ignores is not monetary. It is attentional. An item in your possession that does not serve your assignment depreciates your attention at a rate that compounds daily. Each morning, your cognitive system performs an inventory, not consciously, but structurally, of the things you own, the obligations you carry, the commitments your acquisitions have created. Every item that does not belong to your assignment creates a micro withdrawal from your attentional resource. A researcher who studied decision-making quality across different environments found that individuals operating in environments with fewer objects, fewer open loops, and fewer unresolved commitments consistently made higher quality decisions in the same time frame as individuals in cluttered environments, not because they were more intelligent, but because they carried more attentional resource into each decision. The cognitive tax of their environment was lower. Calculate not just the financial cost of your acquisitions, but the attentional depreciation rate for the next 30 days. Every time you interact with an object, to clean it, maintain it, move it, use it, or think about it, ask whether that interaction served your assignment or withdrew from it. At the end of 30 days, you will have a precise map of your highest cost possessions. They will not always be the most expensive. They will be the ones consuming the most attention for the least assignment return. The sixth law is the law of manufactured scarcity. The primary mechanism by which the consumption system operates is the artificial compression of time. Urgency is manufactured, not discovered. When a system needs you to decide before you have thought clearly, it is because clear thinking is dangerous to the transaction. And if clear thinking is dangerous to the transaction was never designed to serve your function. Scarcity is a real phenomenon in nature. Resources are finite, seasons change, supply fluctuates. But manufactured scarcity, the countdown timer, the limited availability notification, the flash sale that returns every 72 hours is a governance attack on your decision-making architecture. It is specifically designed to bypass the deliberate evaluation that would reveal the purchase as unnecessary. A precision machinist never operates under time pressure when setting tolerances. Tolerances set under pressure are tolerances that fail under load. The craftsman who rushes the measurement rebuilds the part. Speed in manufacture is valuable only after design specifications have been verified without pressure. The decision about what enters your system is a design specification. It must be set without pressure. Go back through records of purchases made under urgency. Calculate the retention rate of those items against purchases made through deliberate consideration. The urgency-driven purchases will carry a significantly higher discard rate, a higher regret frequency, and a lower assignment relevance score. Institute a mandatory deliberation period for all non-consumable acquisitions. 72 hours minimum, not because 3 days are needed to make a decision, but because manufactured urgency has a half-life of approximately 48 hours. By the 72nd hour, the manufactured pressure has dissipated and only the functional question remains. The seventh law is the law of designed completion. The original blueprint of any functional system includes everything that system requires to execute its assignment. This is the principle that the entire consumption economy depends on you never fully believing. Because if you believe at the structural level, not merely the intellectual level that you were designed complete, the entire architecture of buy to become collapses. The manufacturer does not produce incomplete components and outsource the completion to a retail system. A component is shipped with its full functional capacity already installed. The capacity may require development, training, exercise, exposure, time, but the capacity itself is not added post-production. It was specified in the design, installed at origin, and is already present within the unit. There is a story of a master instrument builder who was asked why his instruments required no accessories, no add-ons, no enhancement packages after purchase. He said, because he built for the function, not for the aftermarket. An instrument that requires something else to function fully is not finished. It is a prototype sold as a product. His instruments contained everything required for their full function within themselves. The musician only needed to learn to play. Every significant breakthrough in your life, every moment where you operated at a level that surprised even you, did not come from something you purchased. It came from something, you accessed something already within the system of your design that was activated by pressure, by commitment, by necessity. The capacity was always there. The acquisition was never the source. Conduct a component inventory. Identify 3 capacities you currently carry that you have not fully deployed. Not skills you wish you had, capacities you already possess, but have been underutilizing because you have been investing resources in acquiring substitutes for them. Those 3 capacities are the beginning of your excavation. Invest in their development before investing in any further acquisition. Now, let me show you how to stop buying these things immediately. Not with a list, not with a restriction protocol, with a systems redesign that makes unnecessary acquisition structurally difficult rather than merely philosophically discouraged. Discipline applied against a system designed to extract from you is an unequal contest. The system is larger, more sophisticated, and more persistent than willpower. You do not win by trying harder. You win by redesigning the environment in which the contest occurs. In the first 72 hours of this recalibration, your single task is environmental architecture. Remove purchase pathways that exist for convenience rather than function. Unsubscribe from every marketing communication entering your system. Not the brands you have a deliberate relationship with, but the ambient noise of promotional messaging consumed without intention. Remove saved payment information from every platform where the friction of entry would otherwise cause you to pause. Pause is the operative mechanism. Friction is its agent. You are not removing your ability to purchase. You are reinstalling the deliberate pause that the consumption system has spent enormous resources engineering away from you. In the first 30 days, your task is the identity audit. Every purchase category appearing in your transaction history carries an identity statement. Trace each category back to its structural origin. The clothing category, what statement about identity is being made? And is that statement still aligned with the assignment you are executing? The technology category is each device serving your function or performing your desire for the appearance of preparation. The consumption category, is it nourishment or is it emotional governance externalized? This is not judgment. This is diagnostic work. The system cannot be corrected before it is fully seen. In the 6-month cycle, your task is allocation redesign. Every resource that previously flowed toward acquisition that did not serve your assignment must be deliberately redirected. Not say passively redirected, actively. Toward the development of your installed capacities, toward the infrastructure of your actual function, toward the systems that will carry your assignment beyond the range of your current reach. This is governance made operational. This is dominion expressed as financial architecture. The urgency of this moment is not about money. It is about time, the non-recoverable resource that every unnecessary acquisition consumes at both ends. At the front end, you exchange time for the money that funds the purchase. At the back end, you exchange time managing, maintaining, and eventually discarding what the purchase brought into your system. The true cost of everything you own is denominated in time, not currency. And time is the resource most directly connected to the execution of your assignment. There is a pattern visible across every individual who operated at their highest functional capacity across fields, across cultures, across centuries of documented human performance. They carried very little, not because they were poor, because they understood at the level of systems that what they carried defined what they could move. A traveler carrying 50 pounds cannot navigate the same terrain as a traveler carrying 10. The terrain of your assignment requires mobility. Mobility requires divestment from what you have accumulated in the name of preparedness that was never really about preparation. Every purchase you have made that does not serve your assignment was a negotiation, a transaction between your current self and a deficit that your designed self does not carry. Every item sitting in your space, unused or underused, is a physical record of a negotiation made from a position of confusion. That confusion is not a character defect. It is a systems error, and systems errors are correctable by design. The clearing of what does not serve your function is not loss. It is the reclaiming of signal. It is the return of attentional resources to their intended allocation. It is the beginning of a system operating in alignment with its original blueprint, and a system aligned with its blueprint performs in ways that a misconfigured system never approaches, regardless of how much additional material is loaded into it. The pain of past acquisitions, the money spent on things that delivered nothing to your assignment, the time consumed maintaining what should never have entered your system, the clarity sacrificed at the altar of manufactured urgency that is not a record of failure, it is test data. Every product that undergoes rigorous testing accumulates stress marks, recalibration data, documented failure thresholds. The manufacturer does not discard a product because it failed the test. The manufacturer uses the test data to understand the actual load capacity, the real failure boundaries, the authentic performance parameters of the component. Your past consumption was testing the product, and the product, the system of your design, has survived not because every decision was optimal, but because the original blueprint is more robust than any error downstream of it. The design does not fail when the component encounters stress. The design reveals its depth under stress. And you are here having made every purchase you should not have made, having filled every space with things that did not serve your function, having spent from positions of confusion and urgency and identity deficit, and you are still capable, still in possession of every installed capacity that the source specified in the original design, still aligned at the structural level with an assignment that has not been canceled by any acquisition, no matter how misaligned. The charge is not to be free of acquisition. The charge is to acquire with the precision of a manufacturer who knows exactly what each component is for, what load it will bear, what function it will serve, and what the system looks like when every element is in its proper configuration. That is not deprivation. That is mastery of the blueprint. You were not designed to accumulate. You were designed to execute. And everything that does not serve the execution of your assignment is weight. That costs more than its price tag every single day it remains in your system. Stop buying your way toward a version of yourself that was already installed at origin. Stop negotiating with your deficit using currency. Stop letting manufactured urgency override the governance of your own design. Stop filling the space that your assignment is supposed to occupy with objects that were never specified in the original blueprint. The system around you will continue operating at full intensity, offering identities you can purchase, capacities you can acquire, futures you can order and receive before you have even understood your function. It will not stop. It was not designed to stop. It was designed to extract continuously from every component that has not settled the question of its own assignment. Settle the question, not with another purchase, with the kind of deliberate, structured stillness that allows the original blueprint to become audible again. The signal has never stopped transmitting. The interference has simply been too loud to hear it. Build nothing that the blueprint does not specify. Carry nothing that the assignment does not require. Acquire nothing that the function does not demand. The product was complete at origin. Stop trying to finish what was never unfinished.